Versatile Mage. Chapter 396. Wrath of the Totem Beast, Part 2. A black shadow weaved agilely across the field in the valley below. It was none other than Councilman Luo Mian, who had intercepted Wang Shaojin. He was quite adept with the shadow element. Each time he moved, he could leap past several layers of shadows at once. Councilman Luo Mian, we've been waiting a long time for you. A rough-looking man stood among the bushes. He was followed by a few men who were the subordinates of a few other councilmen. Judging from their auras, each of them was an advanced magician. Councilman Luo Mian slowly walked out from the shadows. With his goatee, his smile granted him a friendly appearance. However, little did everyone know, he had just cold-bloodedly murdered a youngster who was close to becoming Hangzhou City's hero. I've got the stuff. You should be relieved. As long as you are with me, you will enjoy endless fortune and outstanding power, said Councilman Luo Mian with a smile. The rough-looking man and the other advanced magicians grinned, too. One of them spoke up. Allow us to escort you to the quarantine zone. Escort. Councilman Luo Mian smirked. It seemed like the person who had repeated the same thing had now turned into a soulless shell. The rough-looking man said, Zhang Heng, I can assure you that not many people are worthy enough to be Councilman Luo Mian's escort. He once killed the greatest number of commander-level demon beasts among the magicians of the Enforcement Union. His record is kept on a boulder in the Magic Court's Supreme Hall. Until today, not one person has managed to break his record with the same cultivation. Alright, we'll have time for stories later. Don't forget that Hangzhou City is still in danger. It's time for I, Councilman Luo Mian, to be the savior. Once it's done, more people will be willing to give me their allegiance. Until then, no one can ever pose a threat to my position. I'll soon become a chairman. Humph. Luo Mian burst out laughing. The crowd followed up with fawning words for him. Surrounded by the crowd, Councilman Luo Mian was about to depart for the quarantine zone, but he had only taken a few steps when a great tornado made up of purple-black air descended from the sky. It rooted deeply into the ground, shredding the grass into smaller pieces. It soon grew into a great hurricane covering the whole valley. The thick mist within the tornado slowly spread into the surroundings, turning into a wall of mist blocking the group's path. Inside the mist, a blurry, flickering black silhouette slowly appeared. It was as massive as a mountain's spine. Its body was extremely lengthy, long enough to intertwine with itself inside the mist. It felt like countless giant pythons the size of a mountain slithering in the mist. However, as the mist disappeared, everyone discovered that it was only a single skyscraping snake, tall enough to touch the clouds. The skyscraping snake stood upright. He slowly lowered his head, like an emperor staring down at the sinful humans on the ground. His eyes emitted a cold flicker, penetrating their hearts like magical swords and rooting them to the spot. On top of his head stood the furious Mo Fan and Lingerling. They were here to revenge Wang Shaojin. Mo Fan glared at Councilman Luo Mian. To his surprise, he had met the person standing beside the councilman before. When he went to the shrine at the center of the lake with Tang Yu, a person called Da Sheng was on duty looking after the place. The same person was standing beside Councilman Luo Mian now. It clearly implied that he was the traitor in the Totem Guardians tribe. Da Sheng was frozen in place. He never thought their totem beast, the black totem snake, would appear here. He did not have the courage to raise his head. He was absolutely terrified, just like Mo Fan's reaction when he first saw the beast. He was so petty that he had no chance of resisting the beast. On the other hand, Councilman Luo Mian was a super magician. He was able to hold his ground. He raised his head and said with a cold grin, Do you still think you're the same totem beast? Without completing the ecdysis, I alone could easily eliminate you. The black totem snake suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a puff of black fog. It struck the ground and produced a powerful black ripple. The energy ripple shattered the ground. The surrounding space trembled violently. Several men siding with Luo Mian were blown into the air. They were all advanced magicians and reacted quickly, casting defensive spells or protecting themselves with defensive equipment. However, their efforts were all in vain facing the black totem snake's overwhelming power. The defenses shattered into pieces, just like the ground. They floated in the air like grass stalks as the force tore at them. A guy with weaker cultivation was suddenly torn apart when he reached a height of 50 meters, his arms, head, and legs amputated. Fresh blood jetted out from the cuts, sprinkling down in the night sky. The rest did not last any longer. They had all fallen into hell. Apart from having their limbs amputated, some were smashed into minced meat and were spread across the sky. 4 magicians were killed instantly. They were utterly helpless against a rather normal breath of the black totem snake, and all suffered horrible deaths. The only person who had stayed alive was the traitor called Da Sheng. He was one of the totem tribe, thus he was well aware of the totem beast's power. He had used all his energy to defend himself right at the start, thus allowing him to cheat death. However, his body was covered in blood. He was already half dead when he fell from the sky. Mo Fan could not believe what he had just seen from on top of the black totem snake's head. Each of them was an advanced magician, and yet the black totem snake had used a single attack to kill them all. How powerful was the totem beast exactly? The energy slowly dissipated, leaving a mess behind. The cracks on the ground extended far into the distance, as if a gigantic deity had just stomped down, leaving a deep footprint behind. The ground continued to slowly crack open like a canyon. The only person who was left unharmed in the area was the super magician, Councilman Luo Mian. He pulled a long face and snapped at the black totem snake with a glare. It should take you half a month more to complete the ecdysis. You're only burning your life force to temporarily grant yourself outstanding strength. Are you trying to kill me even if it will cost your own life? Councilman Luo Mian would never believe that the beast had recovered his full strength. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 397. The Power of the Snake God, Part 1. He still needed half a month to recover. Mo Fan was taken by surprise. Perhaps the illegally recycled cooking oil had brought some unexpected effects. As a matter of fact, Mo Fan was on point. The diseased blood in the serums was considered a delicacy to the white magic falcons. It was also a nutritious tonic for the black totem snake, as it had replenished the vitality the beast had lost during his ecdysis. Councilman Luo Mian could not expect that the sin he had committed had somehow helped the black totem snake with his recovery in return, eventually leading the beast here to take his life. Councilman Luo Mian pulled a long face. The goatee he had combed perfectly was disheveled by the gusts of wind. He pointed his finger at the black totem snake. I've spared your life once. Since you're so desperately asking for your death, I'll grant you your death wish. Totem beasts, you all should have been buried deep under the ground with the ancient kingdoms and deemed extinct in the history records. Once you're dead, the world would have one less totem beast. The black totem snake stared down at him with the same proud look. As the councilman roared furiously, he flung his body hard in Luo Mian's direction. Councilman Luo Mian managed to react in time. His body sank into the shadow, which soon split into 2, then 4 rapidly. The shadows spread out in 4 different directions. It was impossible to tell which was real. Mo Fan was astounded. He had no idea the councilman was so adept with the basic spell, able to split into so many illusionary shadows to trick his enemy. He was clearly still a long way from reaching the man's level. Councilman Luo Mian might be able to trick others, but he could not escape the black totem snake's sharp eyes. As his body slapped the ground hard, a tide of soil stirred up, tailing one of the shadows. The tide slammed into the shadow like a dragon. Councilman Luo Mian quickly leapt out from the shadow in panic, but he was still knocked a few hundred meters away by the impact. He clenched his teeth as he rose to his feet. He used his fastest speed to cast an advanced shadow element magic, the Nyx regime. As it was already dark, the Nyx regime quickly summoned a curtain that light could not penetrate around the area where the councilman was standing, setting up his zone. Councilman Luo Mian was very fast at casting the spells. He was using the advanced spell as his cover. Otherwise, he would not have enough time to cast any super spell while defending himself from the Black Totem Snake's attacks. A star palace could only be constructed by aligning 7 star constellations together. It was a complicated process. The Black Totem Snake suddenly inhaled deeply. Its body bloated slightly before green puffs of poisonous gas jetted out from the gaps between his scales. The poisonous gas did not spread wildly, but accumulated at certain positions and took the shape of the Black Totem Snake. The poison transformed into 9 enormous snakes, more like destructive hurricanes. As the Black Totem Snake roared, the 9 poisonous snakes charged at Councilman Luo Mian's zone. The area the Nyx regime covered was huge, but it was nothing compared to the size of the poisonous snakes. One of the poisonous snakes slammed into the curtain and swiftly tore it apart. The poisonous mist surged forward and quickly surrounded Councilman Luo Mian, who was trying to use the darkness as his cover. The mist was thick as a wall. Councilman Luo Mian was trapped within it, and yet 8 other poisonous snakes were waiting to lunge at him. The ground trembled vigorously after every collision. The poisonous mist spread across the place. Mo Fan could only see Councilman Luo Mian panicking as he defended himself from the mist. He seemed to have awakened the light element, too. It was the strongest element against poison, yet his spells were devoured by the snake's poison almost instantly. The snake poison was too domineering, leaving no chances for any prey within it, even if they were a super magician. Luo Mian's defense quickly crumbled under the attacks from the 9 poisonous snakes. The poison penetrated his body, leaving marks on his skin. Councilman Luo Mian was steps away from the jaws of death. The Black Totem Snake's poison was almost incurable. However, the Black Totem Snake was reluctant to let the evildoer die so easily. The Black Totem Snake took a deep breath, inhaling the poison back into his body. The powerful gust dragged Councilman Luo Mian toward the snake's mouth. The councilman realized he was seconds away from being swallowed. He collected his thoughts and activated his final trump card. A golden glow burst out from Councilman Luo Mian's body. The ray of lights formed a golden shield around him, protecting him like a golden house. When the Black Totem Snake's fangs bit the sturdy shield, it surprisingly was not shattered by the great force. The Black Totem Snake opened his mouth for another bite. Clank! He felt like he had just bitten on a diamond. His fangs seemed to have loosened slightly due to the collision with the sturdy shield. The shield only had a few tiny cracks on its surface. Councilman Luo Mian was protected by the shield and subconsciously tidied his goatee. A smile surfaced on his pale face. Luckily, the diamond shield that the enforcement union had given him had saved his life. Otherwise, he would have been eaten by the Black Totem Snake. The diamond shield would last quite a while, granting him enough time. However, the Black Totem Snake suddenly rolled his tongue and swallowed both the diamond shield and Councilman Luo Mian into his esophagus and stomach. It was fine that he could not bite through the diamond shield. His stomach could digest everything, including the golden diamond shield. Normally, when a snake devoured its prey, it would still be alive. Killing the councilman slowly with his stomach acid would still be torture for him. At least, while he was being digested, he had plenty of time to repent for his sin. Councilman Luo Mian was unwilling to die like that. As he rolled into the esophagus, he screamed at the 2 people standing above the snake's head. The bracelet that contains the red falcon herbs is still in my hand. If I die, Hangzhou City will suffer being invaded by the white magic falcons. A few tens of thousands of people would die. Spare me, and I'll give you the bracelet. Your friend is already dead. Avenging him won't make any difference. Let me go, and I assure you that I'll give you plenty of glory and power with my status as a councilman. I'll give you anything you seek. Councilman Luo Mian was afraid. His previous scornful attitude toward the Black Totem Snake was long gone. He had been told many times how powerful the god protecting the city was. Today, after experiencing it firsthand, He was well aware of how much of a joke his super magic was. He was clearly not on the same level as the beast. He did not want to die. He had no choice but to beg for mercy, even if it would cost him his dignity. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 398. The Power of the Snake God, Part 2. He still has the bracelet. It contains the antidote to the plague, which Wang Xiaojun exchanged his life for. If it is together with Councilman Luo Mian, what shall we do with the infected? How do we deal with the army of white magic falcons? Ling asked worriedly. They would unleash their anger and get their revenge after killing Councilman Luo Mian, but Hangzhou would suffer serious casualties. The black totem snake did not care too much. He had swallowed Councilman Luo Mian along with the diamond shield deep into his stomach, leaving him no chance of escaping. Mo Fan was still in deep thought when he heard noise coming from the sky. He raised his head and saw clouds of white magic falcons flying in the direction. They were in the valley close to the city. After the valley, the white magic falcons would find the houses, residents, streets, schools, and the main quarantine zone where all the infected were kept. Although the residents nearby had been evacuated to prevent the plague from spreading further, once the white magic falcons intruded into the city, these flying demon beasts would quickly reap the lives of the helpless residents. There was nothing they could possibly do. The army of white magic falcons was getting closer. Beyond the faint mist, Mo Fan could see a silver creature flapping its wings much higher in the sky. It was leading a few other massive demon beasts and flying toward Hangzhou City. What is that? The silver-colored one? Mo Fan asked in deep terror. It's the silver Skyroller, the dominator of West Ridge. It is the reason why the heavenly eagles revolted, said Ling. Things are getting out of hand. God knows how disastrous it would be if the ruler-level demon beast invaded the city, said Mo Fan. The calamity of Bo City was only the work of a commander-level Darkwing Wolf, and yet so many people had died. What kind of nightmare would a ruler-level creature and its army, big enough to shroud the night sky, bring to the city? However, in order to resolve the situation, they needed the red falcon herbs inside the bracelet. Even though Councilman Luo Mian was swallowed by the snake, he was still clenching it tightly as his final bargaining chip. He would destroy the antidote Wang Xiaojun had brought back unless they were willing to let him go. What could they possibly do? Mo Fan felt extremely lost. The black totem snake raised his head and roared at the white magic falcons in the air. The white magic falcons rapidly flew past them and headed straight for Hangzhou City. Some of them had begun diving as if they had discovered delicious prey on the ground. Humans who were not magicians were extremely weak. They had no chance of protecting themselves. The black totem snake was infuriated. Hangzhou was considered his territory. How could he allow the demon beasts to act ruthlessly in his territory? With a wriggle, he traveled across the valley and moved quickly toward Hangzhou City. His size was like a mountain. The people of Hangzhou City could clearly see his enormous head and body moving toward them despite the distance. A deep ravine was left behind where he passed, lining up parallel to the canals flowing out from the city. The streets were filled with screams. People hiding in buildings could not hide from the claws of the white demon birds. Casualties began to appear. Luckily, the place was one of the earliest parts to be evacuated, so the situation was not the worst. The white magic falcons poured down like white raindrops. They scattered across the edge of the city. Many magicians were helpless against them. They could only watch as the birds destroyed the city and killed civilians. More shockingly, a massive snake had just arrived at the edge of the city. The guards were more afraid of it than the white magic falcons. As the black totem snake arrived at the edge of the city, he opened his mouth and spat out a poisonous mist at the white magic falcons. Within seconds of inhaling the poison, they turned into stiff corpses on the ground. The black totem snake's poison was strong enough to kill the white magic falcons instantly. The groups of demon beasts fell rapidly from the sky and smashed into bloody piles as they hit the ground. The poisonous mist enveloped the sky near the edge of the city. It slowly formed a poisonous barrier defining his territory. If the white magic falcons trespassed into it, they would turn into stiff corpses instantly. Thousands of white magic falcons died in the poisonous mist. The army thought they could use their numbers to break through the barrier, but every single one ended up dead. The poisonous gas lingered in the sky without spreading toward the humans. The residents thought they were doomed and prepared for a brutal death. To their surprise, the poisonous mist stopped the white demon beasts from reaching them. They stared at the skyscraping snake forcing his way into the city. "Is he protecting us?" asked an intermediate magician. Behind her stood a group of elderly being transferred from the aged care center. These older folks had not received the evacuation order in time, as if abandoned, except for the female battlemage who had arrived moments earlier to protect them. The elderly raised their heads and saw the skyscraping snake stopping the invasion of the white magic falcons with his poisonous mist. In their astonishment and joy, they recalled an old tale related to Hangzhou City. It was said that something was protecting the city, a gigantic snake who could wall up the city by joining his tail to his head. The black totem snake stood at the edge of the city. He raised his head, staring at the white magic falcons targeting him. In his eyes, the white magic falcons were like mosquitoes and flies, nothing to be afraid of, regardless of their number. The massive beast continued to spit out poison. The barrier grew thicker. He would not let a single white magic falcon break through. He suddenly raised his head high after noticing something. His glistening eyes looked up into the sky. The silver spiraler was flying right above him. Similarly, the silver spiraler stared at the black totem snake on the ground. It uttered a furious cry, as if it were aware of a great threat. The sharp cry echoed throughout the entire city. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 399. The Cold-Blooded Spiraler. In the sky above the city, Elder Li Qian and Commander Yun Feng were surrounded by a water barrier. Sharp silver feathers were being fired at them like a wild storm. The barrier only managed to protect against a wave of the feathers before it shattered into pieces. Their bodies were soon covered with bruises and wounds. The silver spiraler was extremely cunning. It seemed familiar with how human magicians cast their spells. The humans fighting it were all super magicians, and the only spells that could actually penetrate its armor of feathers were super spells. The demon bird could manipulate its feathers at will. They circled around it like blades, forming a zone of blades as protection. Not only was the zone its unbreakable defense, it could fire the feathers at its targets too. The silver feathers were extremely troublesome for the super magicians to deal with. Every time they tried to cast a super spell, the feathers would lock them down, giving them no chance to finish constructing the Star Palace. Constructing a Star Palace was a complicated process, involving connecting 7 star constellations. Only a few people could do it in a short amount of time. Li Qian, Yun Feng, Zhu Meng, Tang Zheng, and the others were not able to do it. They were fairly powerful and could cast advanced spells almost instantly. Unfortunately, none of them were strong enough to penetrate the silver spiraler's zone of feathers. It was like a defensive tornado revolving around the demon beast. Any destructive spells ended up shattering after making contact with the zone. What should we do? If we don't find a way to break through its defense, we can't even inflict any damage, said Elder Li Qian, frowning. Their castings of super magic were always interrupted, and the advanced spells were totally useless. The silver spiraler utilized its zone of feathers perfectly. It was almost unbeatable. "We have to break it at all costs," shouted Councilman Zhu Meng furiously. His magic was the most destructive among the super magicians. Under Wu Pingzheng's protection, he was able to control the powerful lightning element, quickly withdrawing a distance away. 5-star constellations formed around him. He had aligned the stars at an insane pace. The nebula and star patterns of the star constellations were swiftly illustrated. It was not something an ordinary super magician could do. It seems to be looking at the ground. It's distracted. Councilman Zhu Meng, this is our chance, yelled Wu Pingjing. Wu Pingjing braced himself for a rain of feathers pouring at him. To his surprise, the silver spiraler had shifted its attention to the ground. Something there had infuriated it. Zhu Meng and Wu Pingjing had no time to worry about what was happening on the ground. Zhu Meng focused on drawing the last 2 star constellations. The 7-star constellations were constructed. The densely packed stars combined into a magnificent galaxy. The nebula had joined the stars together, resulting in a stunning star pattern. The combination of the perfectly aligned star patterns formed mysterious star constellations. The star constellations continued to connect with one another, forming a majestic star palace. Dark purple lightning flickered wildly within 100 meters of Councilman Zhu Meng's position. He had drawn out a lightning halberd in the sky. The lightning halberd was flung out fiercely. Its size continued to grow along the way. One after another, more lightning halberds swept across the sky, forming 9 lightning trails. The lightning rays flew right at the silver spiraler's featherblade domain. A lightning cage constructed by 9 towering pillars appeared, trapping the silver spiraler within it. Although the lightning punishment was not as powerful as the formation that had trapped the black totem snake, it was more than enough to keep the silver spiraler busy for a while. The silver spiraler was infuriated when it saw the lightning bolts surging toward it from all directions. It tried to barge out of the cage but realized that the strongest entrapping spell among all super spells was not something it could break out of easily. Its body began to fall, bringing the lightning cage with it. The lightning punishment fell together with the demon bird. At a certain height, the silver spiraler suddenly uttered a shrieking call. The piercing cry echoed in the night sky among the army of white magic falcons. What is it trying to do, calling its pawns over? Does it think they are strong enough to break the lightning punishment? Said Councilman Zhu Meng. As soon as Councilman Zhu Meng finished his sentence, the army of white magic falcons started slamming into the lightning punishment like giant white nets. The first batch of the white magic falcons consisted of over 100 in total. They were likely grouped according to their nests, judging from their synchronized movements. However, as soon as they made contact with the lightning chains between the lightning halberds, their bodies crumbled instantly and turned into sprinkling blood. After the first batch of white magic falcons was killed, more charged in the direction of the lightning punishment recklessly. There were warrior-level demon beasts among them, yet similar to the servant-class demon beasts, they had no chance against the overwhelming power of the super lightning element spell. Thousands of them died within a few seconds. The droplets of blood had turned into a blood mist covering more than a few kilometers. It was a bizarre sight. Councilman Zhu Meng was stunned. He could not believe the ruler-level demon beast would send its people to death just so it could break free from the entrapment as soon as possible. Finally, the seal of the lightning punishment began to shudder due to the endless waves of kamikaze birds. Its power gradually diminished. When the silver spiraler saw that its plan was working, it uttered another cry, demanding the white magic falcons sacrifice themselves. These low-class creatures were too petty compared to a high-lineage demon beast. Even though the lightning punishment was fairly strong, it could only entrap the silver spiraler for a limited time. To prevent itself from getting hurt, the silver spiraler had chosen to sacrifice thousands of the white magic falcons. The cold-blooded silver spiraler finally escaped from the lightning chains. It rose into the sky once again, its feathers standing upright. Countless silver feathers were immediately fired at the 5 super magicians in the night sky. The feathers were extremely sharp. Any ordinary defense was unable to resist them. Wu Pingjing was in charge of protecting Councilman Zhu Meng. He had already used defensive equipment and spells at the same time, but they could not hold off the silver rays. His body was punctured with holes. The silver rays continued to fly toward Zhu Meng with his blood. Zhu Meng's left shoulder was penetrated, leaving a huge bloody hole. He endured the pain and flew toward Wu Pingjing, dragging him away from the rain of feathers with his fastest speed. Chapter End. Versatile Mage. Chapter 400. Black Totem Snake vs Silver Spiraler, Part 1. Wu Pingjing was severely injured. If it weren't for Councilman Zhu Meng dragging him away from the endless silver rays, he would be a deformed corpse by now. Tang Jung quickly came over and escorted him away. The holes on Wu Pingjiang's pale body meant he was losing blood at a crazy rate. He glanced at Councilman Zhu Meng with a feeble look and said, "Councilman, I'm afraid we are no match for the demon beast. I've lost the ability to fight, and you're injured too. We should retreat to the city's defensive barrier." "Nonsense. If we retreat now, who's going to stop this monster? Do you have any idea how destructive any of its attacks are to the city? If the destructive force lands on any hospital or school, thousands of people will die," declared Councilman Zhu Meng furiously. Councilman Zhu Meng stared at the silver spiraler coldly. He couldn't have cared less about the bleeding wound on his shoulder. He was not a cold-blooded authority figure like the silver spiraler, who was willing to send thousands of its people to die in vain. Humans were different because they were sentimental and had feelings. Every life had its own meaning. As a councilman, if he did not care about the millions of lives in the city and ran away just to save himself, how different was he than the demon beasts? So what if he were injured? As long as he stopped the cruel demon beasts from invading the city, as long as he could prevent a huge number of lives from diminishing, even death would be worth it. These goddamn demon beasts, I'll let you know that invading human territory is the stupidest idea you had in your whole life. Councilman Zhu Meng clenched his teeth and activated the equipment that he had not used before. Sky Thunder Royal Armor. The battle had lasted throughout the night. The sky had slightly lit up in the east. A bolt of lightning struck down from the sky all of a sudden, lighting up the entire city. It felt like a bolt of punishment sent by God. The astonishing lightning landed on Councilman Zhu Meng's body. Plate armor covered with lightning arcs draped over his body, equipping itself from his head to his ankles. It was a magnificent lightning armor set, like a gift from heaven. A pair of fiery wings appeared on Councilman Zhu Meng's back. He had suddenly turned into a fully equipped knight, with control over the strongest lightning and fire elements. The lightning and fire elements were the most destructive among all elements. Councilman Zhu Meng flapped the fiery wings and charged at the silver spiraler. He activated another piece of equipment along the flight. Raging flames burned on his palm. It spread wildly into his surroundings and transformed into a red pike. As soon as the pike appeared, a red sun rose between the mountains. Councilman Zhu Meng grabbed the pike and dashed across the sun. The pike burned fiercer as if it had been strengthened by the sunlight. The sky was dyed blazing red. Councilman Zhu Meng was extremely tiny compared to the silver spiraler, but the power he held in his hand was overwhelming. The zone of feathers revolving around the silver spiraler quickly burned to ashes after reaching the flames from the pike. The fiery figure dashed forward, leaving a burning trail behind. The silver defense was torn apart, as the wildfire burned half of the silver domain. Its outstanding power left Tang Jung, Li Tian, and Yun Feng with blank faces. The silver domain was finally broken apart. Councilman Zhu Meng had managed to break through it with the lightning royal armor and the rising sun pike. It was the only progress made since the start of the battle. However, that alone was not enough to take the silver spiraler's life. The silver spiraler stared at Councilman Zhu Meng coldly, its eyes flickering with disdain. It flung its giant wings at him as he was approaching it. Although Councilman Zhu Meng had broken into the silver spiraler's domain, and even though he was using fire and lightning on the silver spiraler, his power was nowhere near enough to penetrate its defense. As the demon beast's wings struck him, he immediately turned into a meteor with a mix of purple and red, falling rapidly from the sky. Councilman Zhu Meng crashed at the edge of the city. The entire street was destroyed from the impact. Luckily, the place was long evacuated. Otherwise, many innocent lives would have been lost. Among the debris, the magic pike was now a slowly extinguishing flame. The armor had managed to save his life, but it was shattered into pieces too. Councilman Zhu Meng spat out mouthfuls of blood. He struggled to his feet and glared at the silver spiraler in the sky. The dominator of West Ridge was far stronger than he had imagined. Councilman Zhu Meng cast a helpless glance at the city behind him. He could imagine that the city was going to be reduced to ruins in the near future, and the number of lives that would be lost. And everything had happened because of his inability. Only Commander Yun Feng, Elder Li Tian, and Tang Zhong remained in the sky. Among them, only Yun Feng's strength was slightly stronger than Councilman Zhu Meng. The rest was still not adept at using super magic. While they were clueless about what to do, a deafening roar was heard from the direction of the city. A black mist rose into the air, carrying a gigantic snake the size of a skyscraper. The snake broke through the army of white magic falcons. None of them dared to get close due to the poisonous mist around it. The snake flew rapidly toward the silver Skyrilla. The silver Skyrilla had placed its attention on the ground throughout the battle. The black totem snake was exactly what it was worried about. When the black totem snake reached the same height as the silver Skyrilla, it immediately cried out, as if it was scaring the silver Skyrilla. It continuously summoned its white army nearby, which again flew at the black totem snake like moths diving into a flame. They all slammed into the poisonous mist. The silver Skyrilla had its domain of sharp feathers, which left the super magicians totally helpless. Similarly, the black totem snake also had an incomparable domain, the barrier of poisonous gas. Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.